I have to go through this in detail because it is astonishingly stupid, astonishingly terrible. So there is a piece that is out at a publication called The Forward. The Forward is a radical left publication. Every so often, they ask me to write something for them. Sometimes I do, sometimes I do not. The publisher is pretty good about letting opposing views appear there, but there's no question that it is a far left, it's a far left publication. Well, they have a piece out today from a woman named Tamara Colton. She's a female rabbi and psychologist in Birmingham, Michigan. Now, number one, when most people say female rabbis, there are some female rabbis who are knowledgeable. But most female rabbis are in the Reconstructionist or Reform movement, and they're not very knowledgeable. Like I, as a lay Orthodox Jew, right, not a member of the priestly caste, not a rabbi, know a lot more than somebody like Tamara Colton just because I read the Bible on a regular basis. How do I know I know more than she does? Because my God, dude. Like, here's what she wrote. She wrote a piece basically saying that Adam and Eve is the first case of Me Too, of hashtag Me Too. And I have to explain this because it's so insane. This execrable journey into biblical exegesis goes so far off the rails that it actually starts running Harrison Ford down. Harrison Ford actually has to run to avoid the engine of stupidity churning the ground up after him. He has to dive into a ravine to avoid it. And only later does he find out that he can get rid of his leg chains. I mean, it's just terrible. Anyway, here is Tamara Colton. So she says, quote, "As a 47-year-old woman rabbi, I've become emboldened by these brave young women to speak a truth that I've known in my heart for a long time but have been hesitant to share. The time has come for me to step forward too. It's time we all acknowledge an overwhelmingly powerful source of shame and silence in the Bible." Okay, now, you'd expect her to go from here to like the stuff in Leviticus about virginity until marriage, or like the stuff in Leviticus about homosexuality, or the stuff in Leviticus about forbidden sexual relationships, you know, or the stuff in Jewish tradition about modesty, right? Yeah, that's where you would expect her to go. It would be stupid, but that's where you would expect her to go. But that's not where she goes. Instead, she goes to Adam and Eve. Now you ask, how does Adam and Eve have anything to do with Me Too? Oh, well, let Rabbi Colton tell you, quote, "The story that begins the Bible, the first one that we learn in Sunday school, the founding story of man and woman, upheld for thousands of years by Judeo-Christian religion, is actually the story of the first sexual assault of a woman. The woman's name is Eve, and the perpetrator is God." Does she read like English or Greek or Hebrew or any human language? Okay, here are a few words that describe this: stupid, fatuous, harebrained, doltish, preposterous, asinine, ridiculous, ludicrous, imbecilic. There's just a few words that come to mind. The story of Adam and Eve has literally nothing to do with sexual assault. It has to do with Eve disobeying a direct command from God not to eat from a certain tree. She eats from the tree at the behest of the snake, who tells her that nothing bad will happen and that God has been lying to her. It turns out God is not in fact lying to her. And then he says, "What did you do?" And then she makes an excuse for it. And then he curses her with pain in childbirth and curses Adam to have to till the ground with the sweat of his brow. Okay, that's the story. What in the world does that have to do with sexual assault? Nothing. Nothing. But here's what she says, quote, "I want you to think about this. Here is a young, beautiful, intelligent, naked woman living in a state of grace. She's hungry, so she does the most natural thing in the world and eats a piece of fruit. For following her instincts, trusting herself, and nourishing her body, she is punished. Her punishment, she will never again feel safe in her nakedness. She will never again love her body. She will never again know her body as a place of sacred sovereignty." To paraphrase Shakespeare, what the F? Okay, there is no way to read that story and come away with that. Here is the relevant verbiage from the book of Genesis, quote, "For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Right? This is what the snake says. "When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves." You notice anything there about like horrific pains of hunger that she had to be sated with only this fruit, as opposed to all the other trees in the garden, which God says she can eat from? Is there anything there about God shaming her for her nakedness? Or is it that she eats a piece of fruit, realizes she's naked, and then feels ashamed because she feels that she has misused her purpose in the world, which is what the story is really about? Right? None of this makes any sense. But Colton's not done. She says, "What have you done?" God thunders. Eve wants to defend herself, but she is too ashamed to speak. Eve, our first mother, whose name means the mother of all living things, is silenced, much the way the patients of Dr. Larry Nassar were. No. Here's the actual Bible, quote, "Then the Lord God said to the woman, 'What is this you have done?' The woman said, 'The serpent deceived me and I ate.'" Where was she silenced exactly? He asked her a question and she answered the question. But this is so, I mean, it's just so stupid. The story is not about men violating women. God commands Adam, God commands Eve, he punishes them both, he punishes the snake, the end. That's the whole story. You have to be a moron to come up with this pathetic interpretation. But I guess when you are a hammer everything looks like a nail. And when you're a Me Too hammer, everything, including stories that have nothing to do with Me Too, look like a nail. My goodness, the stupidity. Wow. High level stupidity. Okay.